I'm so excited for this conversation. Thank you all for being here. We're in this moment of a lot of excitement. 2022 was the biggest year on climate action we've ever had in the U.S. in U.S. history. It was also the biggest year of climate action we've ever had in California's history. So we're in this uniquely exciting moment where we all should have renewed faith that our government is capable of the big action necessary for us to solve the climate crisis and advance a climate just future. That's our reality. And it wasn't our reality at the beginning of 2022, but it is now. California was just pummeled with storms, historic storms over the last few months. We had 3 emergency declarations in the first 3 months of the year. So we don't need to be notified that the climate crisis is here. It is here. But the good news is that we have solutions. We have what it's going to take to solve this. What it's going to take, though, is massive government leadership, vision, and action. That's what it's going to take at the federal government, at the state government, at the local level. But this is why it's so important that we have such a champion here with us today to talk about what this is going to look like and where the opportunities are. And Congressman Levin has been the champion for us on climate issues across the state and an organizer federally, somebody who not only says this is important, but says this is my top issue and I have a vision for it and I'm going to do what it takes to make sure my colleagues get there.
First, I want to say thank you to Mary. You are an amazing, amazing leader, and your entire team of California environmental voters.
Congress just recently passed a piece of legislation, H.R. 1, which some members have taken to calling the Polluters Over People Act. Can you explain what this H.R. 1 bill does and how it impacts our climate goals?
I sit on the House Natural Resources Committee. A lot of what we did with both the Natural Resources Committee and the Select Committee on the Climate Crisis, a lot of the progress that we made with not only the Inflation Reduction Act, which, as Mary correctly stated, was massive, a huge bill. Couldn't have done it without your help, by the way. We can talk about how we worked together and why it was so important to have California environmental voters by our side as we were pushing forward. But to undo everything that we were trying to do in the bipartisan infrastructure law as well. Any good things that we've tried to do on climate, H.R. 1 is designed to try to undermine. And it's sort of like, and I'll close with this, it's like this last gasp for the big fossil fuel lobbyists to get one last bite at the apple, everything that they want to try to prevent the acceleration and deployment of the clean energy technology that we need for a more sustainable future. That's what I'm focused on, Vita, is how we deploy the clean energy technologies of the future rather than doubling down on the dirty energy policies of the past. And when we do it, it won't only be good for our climate and our environment, it'll be great for our economy as well. Much better for our economy, including in red districts.
Thank you, Congressmember. Moving to the next question. So we have the president has issued an executive order to conserve 30% of America's wild spaces by the year 2030, or the 30 by 30 program. Can you explain what is being done in Congress to accomplish this goal?
Well, at the present moment, not enough because of some of the stubbornness of my Republican colleagues, but we're doing everything that we can, working with the administration. It's critically important, and it really runs hand in hand with all the other ambitions and goals that we have. There's no question that if it were up to my Republican friends, they would use every last acre of our public lands for fossil fuel extraction. And unfortunately, we've had some recent decisions, the decision in Alaska that I was very against, that the Biden administration felt that they were compelled or backed into. But we've got to do everything we can to preserve and protect public lands. So I'm hopeful that with Deb Haaland at Interior, with very good people at the Bureau of Land Management, and hopefully the Senate having a very narrow Democratic majority, that will be able at least to hold the line, knowing full well that the president can get a lot done administratively, and that whatever measures the House may take with regard to our public lands will face a veto, hopefully, in the White House. What I worry about, though, Vita, is any sort of deal that they would try to make around, again, this permitting reform concept.
Can you dig into the benefits of national monuments for local communities and how monument designation in California, like Berryessa and the rim of the valley, are important parts of California's 30 by 30 journey?
Well, it's absolutely critical that we preserve and protect any spaces we can with whatever tools we've got for those areas that are potential for monument designation. It's important that we follow through. And my hope would be that in some of these communities, it would be a bipartisan effort. It always is astonishing to me that anytime you have historically significant or in some cases, sacred areas, that we don't have broad bipartisan consensus around monument designation. Or, I would love to see expansion of our national parks as well. We passed on a bipartisan vote in 2019, the Great American Outdoors Act, to fully fund the annual program that helps keep our national parks looking great and properly maintained. And really, for me, that's one of the great joys of living in the United States of America, is be able to travel with your family.
Moving on, the Farm Bill is coming up. Can you talk about other opportunities for climate action or conservation that you see feasible within the scope of the Farm Bill with our current Congress?
Absolutely. I'd like to think this is another area where we could have some bipartisan work. Unfortunately, federal agricultural policy is driven by the large agribusiness companies. And we spend a tremendous amount of money, in my view, subsidizing the wrong things. I had the opportunity to hear Cory Booker the other day. At the Congressional Progressive Caucus, Senator Booker was our guest, and we had a discussion with him about this issue. And Senator Booker, who's been such a great champion of sustainable agriculture, regenerative agriculture, and reducing greenhouse gas emissions from our food supply, he put it this way. He said, if you go to New Jersey to a bodega, you see that the Twinkie-like product is cheaper than the apple. And that's a direct reflection of the fact that we subsidize all the things that go into a Twinkie, but we don't subsidize the apple. And so I think we have to rethink food policy in the United States. And I'm just guessing, if you look at the next couple quarters, because all this is publicly available, you look at campaign finance reports, you're going to see a whole lot of money coming from big agribusiness going to my friends on both sides of the aisle. And they'll be in their ear talking about the need for this subsidy or that, but they're not thinking about nutrition, really fruits, vegetables, things that are great that we need to be promoting for a healthy lifestyle. They're not thinking about the greenhouse gas impact of any of it. And look, I'm not saying ban hamburgers. I remember, a few years ago, he wants to ban hamburgers. He wants to ban airplanes, whatever. No, I'm not saying that. I've eaten hamburgers on airplanes. That's not the point. The point is that everybody can do a little bit more to try to promote a more sustainable future. And we need for the agriculture bill the Farm Bill to reflect that. So we get every 5 years, we get the opportunity to reauthorize this bill. We need to do everything we can to make sure that regenerative agriculture is encouraged and that food policy reflects good, sound nutrition.
Thank you so much, Congressmember Mike Levin. This was a pleasure. I'm going to move it over to my colleague, Aaron, for some audience questions that have come up. Thanks.
Thank you, Vita.
Hello, how are you doing, Representative Levin?
I'm fantastic, Aaron. It's always good to see you, my friend.
Thank you. All right, so what we have is some questions that have been submitted either by email or through the Q&A function. And so what we're going to do is we're going to ask some of these questions, and we're also going to pull up some members of the audience who have some questions. So the first question actually comes from a mutual friend of ours, Councilmember Stephanie Otto. Stephanie, are you available to ask Mike the question?
My name is Stephanie Otto. I'm a council member here in the city of Laguna Niguel. Sorry, my video doesn't seem to be working. I am the first Democrat elected in the city's history here, and currently excited to tell you that we're preparing the city's first climate action plan. I can't do that work without the support of environmental champions like you. So here's the question. Last term, Congress passed the IIJA and the IRA. Can you go into some of the programs you champion and how that money or those programs will benefit communities here in your district?
There's a lot of things that we can do. You know, the bipartisan infrastructure law is really transformative in its own way. We talk a lot about the Inflation Reduction Act and the related climate provisions, again, for good reason. But the IIJA has a bunch of very positive programs that'll help cities like Laguna Niguel. And I look at things like water. So, you know, one of the areas that I'm really excited about is the $1 billion that the IIJA has for water recycling. So I fought for some provisions in the IIJA for environmentally responsible desalination. And I know that that isn't a fit for everywhere and for everyone, but given that, you know, just look at yesterday's news with regard to the Colorado River, given that Southern California will face a water crisis in coming decades, we've got to do everything. You're on mute, Aaron.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Otto. That was excellent. We actually had another question submitted about the Colorado River crisis. And basically the question was, are there federal interventions to address this water crisis that is now affecting multiple states?
Need the Colorado River for a whole variety of reasons. So the options are, you know, none of them are ideal. If you give everybody an equal haircut across the board, that's deeply unfair to California's historic precedents with regard to its legal standing. But if you keep things exactly as they are, that could really be devastating to Arizona. And one of my two roommates in Washington, D.C., my two roommates are Jared Huffman, who represents Northern California, and Greg Stanton, who represents Phoenix, Arizona. He was formerly the mayor of Phoenix, Arizona. So I like to think we could solve water policy just within the confines of our DC townhouse. But we've had a number of conversations about it, and it's not easy because we have to face the reality that if we keep things exactly as they are, that Phoenix will run into real problems. The Phoenix metropolitan area will run into real problems, which is another reason that we have to look for solutions beyond just the Colorado River. We have to look at not just importing water, but things like recycling, things like environmentally responsible desal, and whatever else we can come up with.
I want to invite to the stage one of our ambassadors, Lisa Emmy, and she has a question for you.
I'm Lisa, and I'm an EnviroVoters ambassador from the Inland Empire, which has the worst ozone pollution in the nation due to warehousing. There's a need for corporations to transition toward clean energy and away from polluting processes, but instead they're spending millions of dollars each year greenwashing and employing climate delayer tactics. So how is Congress looking to hold these corporations accountable to taking meaningful steps towards clean energy?
Extremely good question, Lisa, and something that I think a lot about. Pete Aguilar, who's a great leader in the Congress, is now our Democratic caucus chair, and he represents a lot of the Inland Empire. And I know he's very committed. We just did an event with some clean tech leaders the other day. He's very committed to that specific issue. You've got to set really tough standards, and then you've got to follow through. And I'm really proud of some of what's been announced in just the last couple of months by the Biden administration with regard to heavy duty transportation. So it's one thing for us to transition to light duty electric vehicles. And I was very encouraged actually by the announcement from the Biden administration. 2/3 of new cars will be electric. Roughly 2/3 of cars will be electric by 2032. It tracks very closely to my Zero Emission Vehicles Act that I wrote with Jeff Merkley back in 2019 that says 100% of new cars should be zero emission by 2035. So at least we're getting there, but that's only part of the problem. Then you have heavy duty because you have all that truck transportation going on the highways to and from the IE to the rest of the Southern California communities that those giant warehouses support. And so I was encouraged to see the EPA working with CARB, very, very aggressive on heavy duty transportation, and all credit goes to them for putting together a very ambitious plan that I believe we're going to see around half of all the heavy duty transportation convert to all electric and to zero emission.
And so to dig into that a little bit more, what role do you think that Congress has specifically in corporate accountability when it comes to climate? Because I think that there are multiple avenues, whether that's your committee appointments and laws or investments, but like, what is the role? Because I think there is this tension where we know that we have to work with corporations in order to achieve climate goals, but then also not all corporations are being good actors in this discussion.
I'll give you just one example that I know is near and dear to your heart, Aaron, and to everybody at California Environmental Voters. That's the issue of offshore drilling in California. So this is something that, and we've polled it, we've looked at this, because I remember 2017, 2018, my belief was virtually no one I speak to, Republican, Democrat, Independent, want additional drilling off the coast of California. And it turns out in the data that we've looked at, it's about right. It's about 80-20. It's about 70% of Republicans don't want to see more drilling off the coast. And the only people that seem to want it are the companies themselves, most of whom aren't even based in California. And so I was really proud of the fact that with your help, literally with you, with the people on this Zoom, we were able to include the drilling ban in the original Build Back Better legislation. That was not easy. That meant that the pro oil and gas Democrats, of which there are a lot still, from Texas and from Louisiana and from some of the other, North Carolina, some of these other states, they were willing to vote with us for this broader package. And that gave me tremendous hope. But of course, when the Build Back Better initiative became the Inflation Reduction Act, and the IRA was still great, but one of the things that they took out, they being Joe Manchin and some others, were the provisions around the offshore drilling ban. And it wasn't just California, by the way, it was California, and it was also up and down the coasts, both coasts. And we got my friends in the Pacific Northwest, we got my friends in the Northeast and in the Southwest, all agreed to do this.
I just want to thank you so much for all of this. This was wonderful. We had a really great time. If your questions weren't answered, please make sure that you write them in the Q&A and we'll write back to you guys. This was a really great opportunity to talk about public lands and HR1, and I just want to thank you for all of your time.
Thank you, Aaron. And I just want to thank everybody on the Zoom and to everyone at California Environmental Voters. I literally could not have a better partner in Washington, D.C. So thank you for all the work that you do. And we've got a lot to do. Again, this is an official visit, not a political one. I look forward to talking about politics at another time. But just thank you, and keep your ideas and your comments coming to our office. We really appreciate that. It's just levin.house.gov.
Excellent. And for us, we just want to say that public lands are an important part of our toolkit to reduce carbon emissions and preserve biodiversity while maintaining open space and community access to natural resources. Your members of Congress, like Mike Levin, play an outsized role by standing up against corporate polluters and demanding that the president expand public lands and national monuments. If you're an EnviroVoter, you can take action by joining our mailing list and joining us for events all year round as we take climate action. Follow us on social media at EnviroVoters and join us as we make a tangible impact on the climate crisis. Thank you guys so much, and y'all have a great day. Thank you, Congressmember Levin.
Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, Mary. Thanks, Vita.
Congressmember.
Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.